Okay. Thank you, sir. Greeting of the day, everyone. I'm privileged to welcome you all into the third edition of Orange City Literature Festival, organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation in association with GH Raisoni University, powered by Raisoni Group of Institutions. I'm Smita Dhote, delighted to be your anchor for today's session, Lockdown Tiger, Never Seen Before, Insight into the Big Cat's World, by Miss Anjana Basu, who is in conversation with Vijayluxmi Bose. Miss Anjana Basu was born in Allahabad and began her school life in London. The BBC has broadcast one of her short stories. Her poems have featured in anthology. She has been published in Govin's, The Blue Moon Review, The Recursive Angel, to name a few. She has also appeared in Antigonish Review, Edinburgh Review, Salzburg Review has also featured her work. In 2003, her novel Curses in Ivory was published. In 2004, she was awarded Hawthornden Fellowship in Scotland, where she worked on her second novel, The Black Tongue, which was published in 2007. In February 2010, her children's novel, Chinku and Wolf Boy was published. Her novel, Rhythm of Darkness, came out in October 2011. Anjana Basu has also worked on film script with director Rituparno Ghosh. Before the publication of Lockdown Tiger, the earlier title in the Jim Corbett series were in Shadows of the Leaves, Leopard in the Laboratory, 18 Types, and a Tiger, which was shortlisted by Hindu Goodbooks Fiction Award, and Hide and Seek Tiger. The series is published by Terry. It's an honor to have you us, Ms. Anjana Basu, and this gets even more delightful as we have Ms. Vijayluxmi Bose, who will be in conversation with her as the moderator. Vijayluxmi Bose is a communication specialist and a writer. Her academics writing has been published in many peer-reviewed journals, including British Journal of Medicine. She has recently turned her Facebook page blog called Howwala Diaries about a small village in rural Dehradun into a series of short stories about life lived close to animal, both domestic and wild, with an occasional ghost to spice up the matter. She has reviewed the entire Leopard series written by Anjana Basu for the statement and online reading addicts. I once again welcome you, Anjana Ma'am, and I welcome you, Vijayluxmi Ma'am, and now my dear audience. You are about to experience a conversation between two very dynamic individuals. So, without skipping a moment, I humbly invite Vijayluxmi Ma'am to lead us ahead.
Thank you, Smita, for this very flattering introduction. And I would now like to address my questions to one of my oldest friends. And we have grown together through her journey in authorship. And I would like to ask her about her book, and a book that has a ghost in it. Anjana Basu has a ghost who walks in every book. And that ghost is Carpet Sahib. Why did you choose Jim Corbett as your shadow protagonist, Anjana? What's the reason?
I chose Jim Corbett as my shadow protagonist because an old friend of mine started asking me to write ghost stories. And since we were discussing this in Nainital, the most handy ghost was Jim Corbett. So therefore, Carpet popped neatly into my series with all the tigers, the leopards, and the children. And I must say, he's been a very good ghost.
A very good one. Very, very loyal indeed. Uh, Another thing I find very intriguing and interesting, and this is especially for the adults as well as youngsters in the audience is the fact that your prefaces are unique. They are written by young people, they are poems and narratives, and especially Lockdown Tiger has a narrative about the lockdown, a young person's view of what happened in 2020 and a bit of 2021. Why do you do this? I mean, you could easily write with your writing skills, you could write the preface. Why do you ask young people to write?
Actually, this started with my nephews. I have a pair called Rahul and Rohan, and there's another one called Rudra, but it started with Rahul and Rohan because they were in Calcutta, and I think they needed to read. So I said, look, if you guys read, I will put you into stories. So therefore, they said, okay, we will make an effort, we will read, but we want to find ourselves in the stories. Now, Rohan won over Rahul in that respect, but I said, since I am putting you into these books, it would be pretty interesting if you guys shared your own opinions of big cat conservation, the world in general, and things related to the natural world so that others can kind of link to it and relate to it, which is why I get them to add their thoughts, stories, and poems to each and every book before I get into the act.
I think that's a very sharp way of doing things, and I hope our listeners will literally take a page out of both Lockdown Tiger, 18 Tides and a Tiger, all your books that have written about the wild, because young people do need to read. So that is a very laudable um, idea, and one that school teachers and those who work with children definitely can talk about. Um, the other thing is why you named the book Lockdown Tiger. I know that the tiger is in a cage and he doesn't have an opportunity to go out, which is what we experienced in 2020 and 2021. But was that the only reason, I wonder?
Well, this Lockdown Tiger was written in March and April 2020 when I was actually locked down. So therefore, lockdown. Oh, hang on. Yes, we have to launch the book. Sorry. Let me hold it up. So this is Lockdown Tiger, which has been published by Terry, and it came out last month. So this is the first time it's being launched anywhere. And Nagpur, the Orange City Lit Fest, is as good a place as any because Nagpur is actually the tiger capital of India. I hope you Nagpur people know that. It's something to be very proud of. So therefore, Lockdown Tiger just I said, okay, I since I'm locked down, I'm jolly well going to call it Lockdown Tiger instead of Locked Up Tiger. And it works. So there we are.
Absolutely, it intrigued me so much. I kept asking you to tell me the story, but you never would.
Now, why would I tell you the story? I do need it to be read first.
So she encouraged me to read. So, in a sense, I'm a role model.
No, well,
You were inspired by, the lockdown that happened, and you have a lot of rogues in your story, and the rogues are almost always poachers. Do you have a particular thing against poachers? Have you ever been
un-
threatened by a poacher? Do you know
no,
a poacher?
no, I'm not a big cat, so I wouldn't be threatened by a poacher. But the point is that if you're going to consider tiger conservation, uh, there are two things which are involved. There is habitat loss, which is due to a lot of people taking land which belongs to wild animals, reserve forests, building roads, building houses. Some of that creeps in because you do, in my other books, have people chopping down forests, etc., etc. It's even mentioned here. The biggest problem, of course, is poaching, because the poachers are the ones who go after animal hides. So they are the biggest actual threat. And therefore, one needs to try and point that out to everyone, to also indirectly give the message that, look, you can't buy animal hides, you should not buy animal hides, and we should not be allowing poachers to exist. So therefore, we need to know that they are there along with other attendant issues. But yes, they also make for dramatic characters because poachers have guns and they tend to be villainous and on the ball. So they make for good villains.
But that leads me to my other question. That, like another famous filmmaker, children's filmmaker we know, whose 100th anniversary was celebrated recently, your stories have a very non-violent and, if I may say, very equable way of ending poacher guard confrontation. Your books are largely non-violent. Even if it is a man-eating tiger or a leopard, they're happy to hop into a car and take a ride. So,
Oh,
where did
yes.
you miss
So
that opportunity for blood curdling and violence? And was
I
it
think
deliberate?
I think if you have a tiger or a leopard, everybody is likely to go, "Ooh, they're going to kill me or bite me." So the cat itself is enough of a threat of violence. But and yeah, I haven't got into a man eater yet. That may be an interesting thing. I must think about it. Carpet Sahib me ghost meets man eating tiger. Uh, anyway, future thought. But see, the point is there's enough violence in life. Children need to be aware of what nature does, what the world of big cats is about, and what the normal world could be like. So, and I also don't want to encourage a thing where somebody is attacked by a wild animal, A, because actually wild animals only attack when they usually only attack when they're threatened. They don't normally make a habit of eating people or running over them, etc., etc. So that needs to be clear. The other point is, I frankly think people are more violent than animals. In this particular book, Lockdown Tiger, there is slightly more violence, I think, than the other books, if you think about it.
Yes. I think the older you're getting, instead of getting mellow, you are getting violent. So that is something I should point out to you as your oldest friend.
Yeah,
It
but
might be a
it
good
is.
sign. Never
I
know.
don't know, but it is, shall we say, mildly violent. I think children need
Endearingly
to
so.
read. Yeah, well,
Endearingly so.
mm,
But I like that point about violence because in my other avatar, where I work with children who are disturbed, we always try to inculcate in them peace, the idea of peace rather than violence. And I think that the nature human confrontation should definitely be less violent. And that brings me to my next point. The adults in your, like Khan Sahib and all the others, are so endearing. They're so cooperative. They have adolescents running around the forest infested by wild animals, and they're always so helpful and trying to bail them out of situations. How did that happen? What is your take on adults and children in your novels
there
generally?
are adults who are good with children, there are adults who are bad with children. But in this particular case, both the major and the Khan Sahib are people who are close to nature. They are involved with the forest department. So I like to think that because of that link, they are generally more peaceful and more tolerant about a lot of things. The major, being a major, obviously has behind him an army background. The Khan Sahib has the benefit of a large house, forest, and everything else. And he is at some level trying to get the better of his relatives who may have killed a whole bunch of tigers in the past, as Zamindari families we know did. So they are adults who have realized things, who have moved on in life, who still enjoy the good things of life, including their occasional cheers, which the 90s we know did. So they are adults who have realized things, who have moved on in life, who still enjoy the good things of life, including their occasional cheers, which the children are happy about. They have their club life. But unlike the mothers of the kids, they are willing to give them a long rope. And they are also aware that they don't want to get them eaten up by tigers, but I have a feeling they think that that might not happen. So therefore, we have this cooperative situation between the kids who are relieved to have adults on their side and the two gentlemen.
Yes, the only discordant note and the only adult who sounds like an adult I've met is Rohan K. Mummy, who is worried about his homework and his academic performance. But she too can be beguiled if he says, I'll get you a plant or I'll write a flower. So I think that indirectly you are encouraging adults to be more tolerant of children and to enter the child's world. And here I think that you ought to be applauded for entering so easily into a child's world. And I think more than you, I think it's your nephews who have let you into their world from a very young age. And therefore, you have an understanding of the child mind, which comes out very clearly. And I think you've done many readings with children in schools. And I think a lot of people should encourage you to do that. And now that everything is online, maybe you can do it for other states and other regions also. And that brings me to your very, very interesting protagonist, Manjul. One thing I find adorable about her that she not only herds cows and fills water, but she is educated and has been awarded by the government. And to those who think that it's not true, I work in Uttarakhand and Kumaon, and there are young girls now who are walking to school, walking back, helping with household chores, and yet getting an education. So I think that's very true to life. But how did Manjul evolve? How did you think of her? Tell us a little bit about that.
Manjul evolved because it seemed to me if I was going to write about Uttarakhand and things, I should have a boy, and it would be good to have a girl to keep things equal. It also struck me that a village girl was more likely to be closer to nature than a Rohan, who was a city boy who'd come to deal with his homework. His mother had taken him to Nainital because he wasn't doing his homework properly, so she was keeping an eye on him. Now, Rohan being Rohan, he ran into Manjul, and Manjul was great because she's the one who actually first met Kapatsav Ghosh since she was walking her cows home. And that bit I took from the story of Jim Corbett's which one? Talades, I think, where this girl was, Putli was taking her cow to her uncle's house. And the man eater was prowling around, and he was determined to make sure that girls like her were protected from man eaters. So Manjul has a little link to that girl and her cow. Kalu, that cow was called. And thereupon it sort of grew. I mean, it grew into this relationship between Manjul and Rohan, and Manjul ki mummy is not very approving of this village girl who's floating around the place. But at the same time, she's been evolving. She actually wants to join the forest department. And because of all these experiences with tigers and things, I see her as a girl from a village who is determined to go beyond, who is determined to do something about nature, and who probably represents a future generation who will, I think, make a difference. At least I hope they will.
You're right. Manjul, I think, is a great role model because she has, first of all, she's not scared of ghosts, she's not scared of tigers. She takes them all in her stride. And I think somewhere you are a feminist, even though you may not admit it, because it takes a feminist Weltanschauung to write about a woman who roams the forests alone, has been awarded, wants to join the forest department. So I think that is a very, that you have a woman protagonist who bridges the new and the old, the conventional and the new world so effectively, I think is very, very encouraging. Which brings me to, I think we started out with Carpet Sahib, and I think we should end with him as a fitting tribute. This bond that Carpet Sahib has. And it's a very interesting bond because when, and we've experienced this a lot post COVID, when children lost people very close to them and they were unable to say farewell because of COVID restrictions. And one of the things parents constantly tell them is you can think about them and you can talk to them in your head. And that's what Kapit Sahib has been doing with these kids constantly, with these children, sorry, constantly talking to them on a very different wavelength. So, how did that relationship evolve?
Oh, it evolved quite simply because if I had to have a protagonist who was a ghost, uh, it was like, okay, how would a ghost communicate? Obviously, you do have ghosts which make noises like woo. Now, I can't imagine a carpet sahib's ghost going woo in the forest.
Mm.
But, however, if you notice, he talks to both wild animals and kids. So, presumably, his mental telepathy is great. He communicates with the children telepathically and he tells them what they need to know. And he some assures them that things will be okay, that animals are nothing to be scared of. And on the other level, he communicates with the animals and makes sure that they do not attack the children, or they do what, or they go where they're meant to go. So it evolves into a kind of relationship on both sides. In The Shadow of the Leaves, for example, you have this thing where this tiger actually charges Rohan, and Carpet Sahib gets in the way, and the smell is blocked, and the tiger goes off balance and isn't able to charge. So from there to now, I mean, the children have understood that Carpet Sahib is there to help them. They've also realized they can contact him in some way. If there's some trouble, he pops up, even though they're not quite sure how that happens. So they know that they can explore this wonderful world of nature with someone who is there to make sure they don't get into scrapes and who will try to sort out life for them in his own way. If you notice, he doesn't quite, for example, in lockdown, he doesn't intervene when Manjul is locked down, shall we say. I don't want to reveal too much of the story because I would like people to buy the book. But if you notice, Manjul is locked down, and Carpet Sahib doesn't step in there. He steps in when the tiger is in distress, and then everything gets sorted out. He also, as a ghost, has his limitations because ghosts quite obviously can't move things, so he can't throw things at people. He can, at the most, block smells. He can suggest and he can advise. So, as a mentor, guide, and invisible friend, I think he manages to do a good job. And he has grown also, if you've noticed, from book to book. Because this last book, there is a lot more about Kapit Sahib thinking about his own life, actually, and how his journeys were, and what he did, and how he is aware that children and tigers need to have their space, children, tigers, leopards, and therefore he has to work out something so that the children will grow up learning about keeping spaces. Tigers, big cats, wild animals, even an elephant in another book, they all will realize that if they keep their distance, everybody is happy. And actually, if you think about it, that is a very good lockdown motive, keep social distancing. Because if you keep your social distance
Hello,
from each
can you
other,
hear me? I somehow got disconnected.
I said that if big cats, if
Can you hear me?
nature, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Both of you.
No, can she hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, so Vijay, what I was saying was that if nature and people maintain social distancing, we're fine. That is actually a very good thing we've learned from COVID, I guess. But in the case of nature and people, it should be more than 6 feet, actually. You heard that?
I guess mom's got
Hello?
network issue.
She has a sound issue, I think.
Audio is not there. Okay.
Ooh, and you're breaking up, Smitha. Or
Me?
you're freezing. Yeah, now you're okay.
Okay.
So the thing I do while she gets back, the thing I would say is that
Yeah, here we are.
yeah. So did you hear my thing about social distancing?
No, but I'll hear it out when the video is played. I'm sure it was good.
No, I basically said
Uh,
nature and adults need to maintain social distancing.
right.
Think
And
about it.
so adventurous young children should not go and confront tigers unless they have carpets up to come to their rescue, is what I was going to say.
Yeah,
So whether it's
exactly.
it's
Unless
ecological
they,
distancing or social distancing, they should maintain it. Uh, this is truly the last, but it's about the image of the leopard returning to the wild, the tiger returning to the wild. That's a leitmotif of all your work, that animals must remain free. So if you would give us your words of wisdom on that like Joy
yeah.
Adamson, like Jim Corbett, you
Mhm.
do believe animals were born free.
Mhm.
Well, I think that animals need to be stay free because, very frankly, they weren't made to be locked up. Yes, and in this case, I have Gerald's Darrell's support. Zoos have a reason for existence because zoos can take care of sick animals. They can help bring up young cubs, etc., etc. But beyond, and they can also help to preserve a few species, breed them, and then they need to set them free. Now, the issues with setting animals free are many because it has not quite worked always. So, the best thing for a tiger, for a wild animal, is to have been born wild and to stay that way because they are territorial species. They do not know what to do. You've shifted me to this room. Now I'm coming out again. I don't know where the hell to go next. How am I going to manage? So they have to learn it all over again, and occasionally they run into the wrong people, and there are problems. You have cases where tigers and leopards have stumbled into people cutting grass and out of sheer horror kill them because they're terrified. The people cut grass have sickles and have tried to attack them, and the result has been disastrous. So the
Corbett's
best,
books are full of that.
yeah. So that is how it is, no. Even
I
when
know.
I went to Comaun, the first thing was man eater, man eater. There was a man eater floating around. I said, "Oh God, I've stepped into my book." And this man eater had apparently attacked a woman who was cutting grass. So when I went around asking, I said, "Excuse me, did the creature eat her, or did he just kill her off?" So they said, but it's a man-eater. So I said, forget it. I don't think somehow the language is not quite right, because as far as they're concerned, any tiger which attacks a person is a man-eater, which is strictly not the case. So the result of all this is that nature has its own rules. You need to leave nature to do what nature does best. And at one level, I did think that COVID was imposed on us to teach us that, look, keep distance, do not cut trees, do not kill animals, let the world go as it was going. Do not increase carbon footprint. Now, just to teach you a lesson, you guys are all going to be locked down and figure out how you like it. Now, unfortunately, I don't think people are as clever in that sense as animals. An animal having been locked up once will make sure it's not locked up again. People, on the other hand, you lock them down, and the moment you let them out, they're busy running all over the place doing exactly what they were doing before. And not even wearing masks. Okay, that's a separate one. So I think we are in this world to learn that we're not the only ones in this world. And what I've been trying to do with these books is to sort of gently pass on the message that, we are not alone. We owe things to nature. There may be a supernatural force as well. We don't know. I would like to think sometimes there are supernatural forces which help. They may not be religious per se, but there is something perhaps. So all these things put together are given to us to help us preserve this place we are living in. And it is our duty and children have now more of an opportunity to learn this because they're being taught it. So therefore, perhaps they will grow up into adults who will do better, because the adults of the past are still busy running around saying, no, we need coal. Yeah, okay, I agree, India needs coal, but it needs to do something about that as well. So we need to become sustainable. And I think there are a whole bunch of stupid poachers who don't realize if they go around killing pigs at the rate they're doing, they soon won't have a livelihood. You kill off enough big cats, then where the hell are you going for your next fix? So the people, I don't know. It's not that I'm giving lectures to poachers, but I think people don't think, frankly. It's like you kill off girl children, and okay, so who's going to bear your next son? You can't have an artificial womb to do this. So I really get the feeling that people have stopped thinking, or perhaps they never did think, or perhaps they thought before. I don't know. But these days, I just find an impatience, an unwillingness to compromise, and an unwillingness to understand that it's not just your world. You want to live in it, you want to live in it happily and comfortably, you follow the rules, and it should be fine. So, at one level, I'm trying to do that through these books. And if I do that much, I guess it's good.
No, I think so. I very much think so. Smita, are we out of time?
Smita?
Mom, it is
I can't hear Smita.
5 to 6. So
we have to.
Yeah, we still have 15 minutes.
Oh, very good.
Oh, good. So maybe we can talk about what I'd like to also give a glimpse to the audience about is the way, did you plan this series, or was it happenstance, or what? That it just comes out so beautifully. And of course, I want to ask you what a leopard is doing with a tiger. And you have to tell us in a way that would encourage us to read the book. So now I have two major questions for you.
I did not quite plan it to be a series. I mean, okay, I thought it could be a series. The second one, Leopard in the Laboratory, which is actually the only one with a leopard for a protagonist, was based because I discovered leopards were in the habit of trying to join IIT Powai. They frequently visit laboratories there. So I said, okay, let's, leopards and this wish to be intellectually superior must be sorted out. So that then I said, okay, one must talk about other tiger places. What about the Sundarbans? You vanished again.
Mom, you're not audible.
Your sound's gone.
I said Leopard in the Laboratory is the one that has Leopard sneaking a car ride.
Yeah. And
Okay,
I
then.
had various people saying, leopard cannot fit into car. I said, it's an SUV. And a leopard is a very stretchable big cat. It can get into
Okay.
remarkable places. I mean, consider that Rudra Prasad leopard, Rudraprayag leopard. It's squeezed in through two bars in the window.
Yeah, and one
So it,
small hole in the chart when he took the girl. Yeah.
exactly. So leopards can just squeeze anywhere. And I had these people, no, it cannot. I said, you don't understand. Cats are stretchable. Leopards are smaller than tigers per se and very stretchable.
Mm.
So therefore I said, just put leopard into car and see how it goes. Then I said that we need to change territory because the Sundarbans is one of the regions where tigers don't actually behave in the way tigers are supposed to. I remember again, I was going through Corbett Park, and this guy who was driving said, tigers do not climb trees, they don't swim. I said, excuse me, you ain't met our Sundarbans tigers. They climb trees and they swim. So I think he looked
Yes.
at me in utter horror and decided this Bengali woman, I don't know where she comes from and what she knows. So I said, okay, let's change things a little and get into the Sundarbans. So we have a story which is not in the Kumaun, and I had to figure out how do I transport or teleport Kapit Sahib to the Sundarbans, which is not Kapit Sahib's territory. So I had to come up with a shortcut way of doing that. So Kapit Sahib has a sort of Bone Baby clone giving him a hand there, so that everything gets sorted. Hide and seek tiger came up because there was this unfortunate tiger which materialized in Jhargram, and poor thing wanted to go away. It was just trying to find a way back to wherever it came from. And unfortunately, we have these hunting festivals, which I believe are not, I mean, it was blamed on the local tribals, but apparently there are many macho young men who want to hunt. So they pay the Adivasis, child, you have a hunting festival, you beat out the game and we'll kill it. So this tiger, which was not doing anything at all, it didn't even kill a cow, was killed. So I thought that story needed to be told, but again, because I want children to believe in a world where happy endings are possible, I didn't kill off that tiger. But so that was hide and seek tiger. And thereupon comes lockdown tiger, which was COVID, I guess. So the result is it came and it's been growing. Now the point is if the children grow any faster, I don't know what will happen. And I'm not quite sure what comes next. But we'll have to see how it goes. Who knows? There are many things to worry about, and we have to worry about our reserve forests. We have to worry about whether highways are going to go across reserve forests. We have to worry about, for example, in Panna, where they were planning to dam the rivers. And then there were people saying, okay, we will shunt Tiger A from here to there, not taking into account the fact that Tiger A would not particularly want to go there because he doesn't know that place at all. It's not his neighborhood. So why is he being shunted from Madhya Pradesh to Uttarakhand? Wrong territory. So I think there is a feeling that okay, there are these dominoes. We just shunt them, or Lego pieces. We shunt them around. I don't care. And yes, we need to make money and we need industry. So the rest of it, someone will grow something somewhere. We can plant a few trees. And as for the rest of it, we can perhaps have tiger sightseeing increasing. We can put them into huge enclosures, and people would say, tiger, and be very happy. The other point I would also like to make is that tiger tourism is very stressful for the animals involved. If they see too many tourists, they stop mating, I gather. This is something that came up in a research finding. However,
That's true, though. That's true.
yeah, so I think, uh,
And the
okay, basically,
vibrations from the vehicles also are very
also drive them
invasive.
exactly. Not to
To say
mention
nothing of the
fumes.
exhaust. To say
Yeah,
nothing of the exhaust.
and the other problem is that a lot of tigers have taken to posing because okay, these guys have come, chal, let us do one pose number. The only thing that worries me about this posing number is then the tiger might decide, oh, what is this irritating creature? Let me get rid of it. Because that is asking for trouble. A tiger is not your pet. No wild animal is your pet. It is there. You do not disturb it. It will not disturb you. But
There are
we
any
don't know
number
this.
of examples of elephants charging vehicles in the douars, for
Yeah,
instance,
there are.
on the highway. On the highway. And they are
Yes,
not
because
rogue, just wild elephants telling you to get out of the territory. That's all.
I know, but
That's all the saber
unfortunately,
rattling ever means.
yeah,
Yeah, so
but
that's another aspect, of being responsible tourists. I think one of the things that COVID has taught us in the post-COVID landslides and cloud bursts and whatever threats they carry for wildlife has taught us that there is a lot more to tourism than just gawping at scenery, clicking pictures, gherowing tigers with jeeps. There's a lot more than that. Of it, like you said, respect for their habitat and respect for the animals. So I'm sure, I hope that when this gets on YouTube, forest officials will be listening also. I have a friend who works with the forest department, and he says most of them, very few of them, really know or love the forest. They're scared because they're not well armed as poachers. They wear rubber shoes. They don't have loafers. They wear rubber shoes and they carry lathis. Poachers carry guns, so they don't want to confront poachers. But I think in all your books, you have shown people like the Khan Sahib or the Major, whatever their backgrounds, have a deep love of forests. So that's another thing I think we need to not only respect them but love them, and not just go there to a forest and just come back saying, "Okay, I've seen a tiger, I've seen a leopard, I've seen a peacock." But to say that, I know what kind of trees grow there, I know the kind of flora and the fauna, I know a bit about the region. And I think that all national parks now have a museum, but the museums are largely deserted. Nobody ever goes there. They go there to picnic, to sightsee, and they'll come out. So wildlife education, I think, is a gap. And I think that is what your adults are doing in a very friendly, non-threatening way. But I think that is another message that you are, trying to give your audience.
yeah, because wildlife education needs to be done now. Where the forest officials are concerned, I'm afraid a lot of them don't even get paid properly, which is why the West Bengal government was having volunteers for forest officials because they didn't have enough people. And that was another issue with that Jhargram tiger. The forest officials, there weren't enough people. So, it has to be a win-win situation. The forest people need to earn a decent living. Otherwise, why on earth would they do this? This is practicality. For the love of nature, okay, the Khan Sahib has money, so he can do it. But your normal forest department guy needs to be equipped, he needs to be cared for. Thereupon, he can care for the animals that he's looking after. But unless we realize that this is vital, it won't go anywhere. It'll just continue into conversations like this. And as somebody said, yeah, you are just doing this to sell books. At which point I was a little irritated because I hoped I was doing a lot more in the books. Uh, but the point is, we have a problem and we need to tackle it along with all the other problems India does have. Because the ecosystem consists of people, nature, wildlife, and without it, it is totally unbalanced. It cannot be a total people ecosystem because then nature goes for a six and we will be suffering living in, I don't know, air conditioned towns and houses and God knows what. And everything will be concrete and built up. And everyone will say, I have pakka body. And for the rest of it, hot summers, storms, yeah, nobody cares. So if we take care of nature, nature will take care of us. I think that is vital. So, oh, and the other thing, yes, they had a whole bunch of drones in, where was it, Corbett, which were supposed to catch poachers. But the drones were getting stuck in the trees, and so they kind of didn't also have batteries for them. So there are a bunch of drones lying in a warehouse somewhere and not doing anything. So you get stories like this happening, and then you wonder, okay, what are we doing? Will we go anywhere? I hope
And so
we
we've
will.
now come full circle to the whole issue of children, that you have children in your books who write your preface, who actually take action. They are thinking individuals. They can plan. They can talk to adults in a way that convinces adults. They are not violent. And that's a complete roadmap for childhood, if I may use the word, for a healthy childhood grown up close to nature. So, instead of taking a flight somewhere, maybe our children ought more to go to forests and see what there is and develop the kind of love for the forest that your protagonists and the children in your books uh, discover. Because every teacher and every parent knows that somewhere in the course of their school life, children write poems, they illustrate, they draw very well, but those fall by the wayside because they have a career goal to achieve, they have a financial goal to achieve. So those kinds of creativity, when we're snuffing that out, we're also snuffing out a very natural bond that they have with nature. And that is something that I think your books can rekindle or sustain. Smita, do
Yeah,
you
well,
have
I
anything
hope.
to tell us?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
No? Is there anything you would like to say, or would you like us to continue?
So, would you like to comment?
You're done with the questions?
We can carry on, but I was just worried
No,
about the time.
if it is done, ma'am, I would like to sum up.
Yes, please. Bunty,
Okay.
is there famous last words?
Famous last words is everything as far as mothers are concerned, it's about marks. So if you get good marks, it is a worthy subject. There is this thing called EVS, which all children have to get marks for. And Rohan generally rides on EVS to pick his mother flowers and things. So I guess if there are more marks for EVS, children will be allowed to wander around in forests and do a bit more of this stuff.
And take environmental studies seriously. I think
Yeah,
that's a
exactly.
good, very practical way to end. And you're a very practical person, despite having ghosts flit through your novels. So that was a really nice conversation. I don't think we've had this kind of conversation in a long time. So thank you for giving us
Right.
the opportunity. Yes,
Well,
Smita, your famous last words.
At the outset, I would like to thank Ms. Anjana Basu and Ms. Vijayluxmi Bose for joining us today. We wish you to get you here both again and be equally enlightened as we are today. And for my dear massive audience, I'm sure after witnessing this conversation, you all are taking home an enriched version of yourself, just as I will. Thank you for joining us today. Until I see you again, this is Smita Gupta.
one last word. Please do buy copies of Lockdown Tiger and the other Corbett books. I have to say this for my publishers and me.
And as a reader, I totally agree. They're fascinating and they're fun.
And I too will be reading them.
Welcome to Rhizome Group, a vision beyond.